From the BBR studios, once again, we are recorded but live. Or live but recorded. Or live but recorded. We talk about everything racing and a bunch more stuff, including hot rods and street rods and all those kind of fun things.
Including BSing.
And BSing, yes. I forget about it.
All right,
BSing.
and who are you?
I'm Chris. Who are you?
I'm Corey. Are you here?
I am here once again on episode 11.
Yeah, 1-1.
1-1, and want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas out there.
Hey, and we're going to tell you right now, we're recorded at 11:11, so make a wish.
Make a wish.
For a Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas, guys.
Oh, yeah. So, hey, do you guys, do you like board games and stuff like that?
I love board games.
Do you like?
Actually, I don't, because I don't want Olivia thinking the wrong thing.
Right.
She'll pull out the Monopoly board in a minute.
You said you like board games.
Don't hold it against me.
Do you like escape rooms and stuff like that?
Yeah, we love escape rooms. That was a good time.
Man, so we wanted to do one of these things. It's called Hunt a Killer, and I found it on Facebook. It's actually kind of a thing where you get a subscription, and they send you one every month to do. Well, we found one at the Target, and it was $25, and I thought, oh, this would be kind of fun to do.
Yeah.
Me and my girlfriend, and I'm going to say something nice about my girlfriend.
Thank God, finally.
Yeah, I'm going to say something nice because I was pretty PO'd. I was the one pissed off this time because I wasn't feeling all that great anyways when we opened that box, but it says it takes like 2 hours to solve this mystery of who the killer is, right? Mm-hmm. And the end is you have all this stuff that the evidence and newspaper clippings and stuff, and then you have this computer you can log into and type in the name of a person you think it is, and they'll tell you if it's the right one or not.
Yeah.
Literally, there's only 6 names that you can choose from. 30 minutes. 30 minutes, she had it solved.
Yeah.
$25. Huh. I had that thing. I was pretty pissed off.
So that's almost $50 an hour if you double it.
Yeah. To hunt a killer. But hey, she did a great job on it, and she actually wants to be a private investigator. So maybe,
you know, my wife wanted to do that too, and I looked into it, and it, you know, although it seems like it's probably pretty good money, you're going to be in some predicaments. You're going to be waiting in a car in a corner hours, and on top of, you know, just, I don't know. I didn't feel comfortable with it, and it's the, you know, your wife's your girlfriend and my wife are similar stature, you know, and I just was worried about getting my wife's ass whooped.
Hey, well, they say, you know, they're not as noticeable out there, as a big fat man.
Well, I don't know, dude. A pretty girl in a car in a parking lot seems pretty noticeable. I'm just saying.
It's not incognito.
Yeah, I'm just saying. Oh. All right. So one thing I wanted to bring up, the news. I forget which button. This one?
Yeah,
this one.
Try that one.
There we go.
Oh, yes. It is the news with your anchor, Chris.
No,
wait,
Corey.
Oh,
it's Corey.
Shit,
Corey's the anchor. Damn it. Don't. Hey, are you trying to take everything away from me in this podcast? Host and anchor?
You are. Yeah.
Hey, one cool thing. One cool thing.
You're done.
You're done.
You're done. All right.
One cool thing I want to bring up.
Right.
So Hoosier Tire was named by the Indiana Chamber of Commerce as the coolest thing made in Indiana. I thought that was kind of neat. You know,
besides me.
Were you made in Indiana?
I was made in Indiana.
I think I was made in Ohio.
You were in Ohio.
So
you're a Buckeye and I'm a Hoosier.
All right. So Hoosier Tire has actually had a long heritage in the small business of Lakeville, Indiana, in 1957, and over 65 years the company expanded in manufacturing to Plymouth, Indiana, where its products offerings to cover nearly every form of racing. I just thought it was kind of neat. Indiana giving a little respect to Hoosier Tire.
Well, hey, Indiana, I mean, I'm pretty proud to be born and raised in Indiana because it's a racing state.
It is.
I mean,
we got Indiana 500.
The Brickyard, if they still do that. I don't know if they still do that
Well,
anymore.
See, as a motorsports podcast, we should probably know that,
you
right?
think we would know that. But see, I stopped watching NASCAR like 15 years ago.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. Well, nonetheless, they do make a lot of cool tires. Obviously, you run them. I'm moving to them.
Yep.
Unless I go to Goodyear, only because
you're going
Smokey.
Hoosier.
There's already Hoosiers on my tires, so I might as well just leave them.
Yeah, you might as well.
But we'll see how that goes. The next thing I want to bring up was a throwback from episode. Man, that sounded like I farted. Did you hear that? These chairs, we're gonna have to fix these chairs.
So you probably could have not said anything, and no one would have heard anything.
I'm sorry.
You just called yourself out on that one, man.
I didn't, though. I promise. All right. So, this is a throwback from episode 10, just last episode. We had something come up about the NHR making a big announcement and everybody being disappointed on it. And I listen to a lot of podcasts. I'm hoping you guys do too, because you're listening to this one. But Brian Loans has a great podcast. It's called the NHRA Insider Podcast. And his last one had Buddy Hall, friend of the show. He was on there talking about him going to Funny Car, which is cool. But in the beginning of it, he gave all the announcements of all the news from PRI, and he addressed the problem that everybody saw from the big announcement NHRA made. And I want to play just a little bit of an excerpt from what he said. I may interject once and then finish it. It's like a minute and 30 seconds.
All right, cue it up.
From the perspective of somebody that's inside NHRA, yes. I don't know how I feel about it. I want to know how you guys feel about it. So here we go. We'll play Brian Loans. No, we will not, because it will not play. Oh, here we go.
Sports site. It
started over.
It was carried by every major news outlet. It was carried by TMZ. It was carried by every major sports site. It was carried everywhere. And so I fail to understand sometimes how you can extrapolate any negative out of this. And, you know, one of the things I think is really interesting is that there's a generation of people. I'm not going to name the generation because it's probably you. Or if you think it's you, it probably is you. But there's a generation of people who think that everything is for them. So what I mean by that is this. NHRA's social media, the outward-facing social media of NHRA, is not really designed for the racers. And this is a tough thing for people.
I'm going to stop it right there. Chris, I just did it again.
Chris, here, take us.
Look, man, Brian, I love you. I love your podcast. And I understand what you're trying to say here. But if the NHRA marketing division isn't for the racers, then they need to have a totally different name than what we all recognize as what we are. It doesn't make sense that I get what you're saying, and I can respect it. But I just don't think that is a fair way of saying, all right, so all you guys that are producing this show for us, our marketing division isn't for you.
Yeah. You're not that important.
Not that important.
Yeah.
We're only caring about the marketing division's only caring about the fans.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you, Brian, and I don't know the numbers. I'm sure you could probably pull them up. And I would love you to come on the show and tell me I'm wrong. That would be great. But I'm fairly certain a lot of the people in the stands are sportsman racers at these big events. A lot of them. A lot of the people that have the memberships that we pay, $100-something a year to be a member, are racers themselves.
Oh, yeah.
If all the people aren't your fan base, then the marketing division, fine. But I would say a solid 50% or more. You know,
they're your backyard racers and
exactly.
And stuff.
That's the ones that are paying for the stands.
Yes.
That's the ones. So to negate what they have to say, is a falsehood.
Yeah.
Let me finish this little comment, and we'll move on.
People to understand. The outward-facing social media of the company is designed for the fan base, the tens of thousands of people that come to these 20-plus races a year we have. That's where the messaging goes, guys. It is not really intended for, I don't know, for the stock eliminator guy who gets his nose bent out of shape when something like this happens. It's intended for somebody who's a casual fan to go, oh, damn, I wonder if he's racing at my track. And lo and behold, I don't know if you noticed this, but every single national event track immediately began promoting the fact that, oh, yes, Tony Stewart will be racing at my track next week.
Okay, that was it. But let me tell you, Brian, that news would have been just as well received from a TSR team update. It would have done the same thing, and it wouldn't have got all these supposed not fans, the ones that are giving the entertainment, all upset because the NHRA made an announcement that had nothing to do with the actual racer, and that's where they're pissed about, not because of anything else. And again, I understand your perspective. I get it. I feel like it's more of like a corporate bootlicker.
I'm not questioning how popular Tony Stewart is, but we did not see the same thing when Bunny Hall announced that he was getting hit.
Yeah, it wasn't the biggest announcement in NHRA
or Lyle Burnett.
Yeah. Or look, man, I get it. It's good for the sport. I don't think anybody's really denying that. It's just not. It wasn't really NHRA's position to push that out like they did, and then claim it being the biggest thing for the sport.
Oh, yeah.
It's just, I don't know, man. I want to get off the soapbox a little bit, but still, I just thought that was an interesting excerpt.
Yeah.
And if you guys do not listen to the Insider Podcast, make sure you subscribe.
So tell us what you guys think about that. Write us at linelockpodcast@gmail.com and let us know, and we'll share your input on the air here. For
And
sure.
also, if it seems like we're a podcast heavy on drag racing, you're absolutely right, because it's what we know about. So if you guys got some interesting news and motorsports, then for sure, email us at linelockedpodcast@gmail.com. Some kind of news. It could be boat racing. It could be whatever. Just something interesting and something you know about, and then we'll talk about it on the show.
Oh, yeah. Well, speaking of our special guest today, I met through his wife. I worked with her in a medical facility, and come to find out she did tattooing, and I needed some tattoo work, actually, and I didn't know what to expect. She's like, hey, you're going to need to come to my husband's shop. I've got a little area up there that I do all my tattooing. And I'd never been there before. And I'm thinking, what am I getting myself into, going to another shop? But, man, I tell you, I walked in to this guy's shop. It's Smith Chassis and Metalworks. And I was pretty flabbergasted at the amount of, chassis and cars all lined up in there. So our special guest today is Brandon Smith with Smith Chassis and Metalworks. Are you with us, Brandon?
Yep.
How you doing, buddy? You doing all right?
Good.
I just have a question. Is the tattoo guns, are they connected up to 222?
No.
You giving her full power up there?
Yeah, that'd be pretty painful at that kind of amperage.
All right, man. Tell us a little bit about how you got into building chassis, and then we'll get into what kind of chassis you do build. But, how did you get into doing all this?
Well, I mean, we'd been doing, air ride hydraulics, actually starting off doing mini trucks way back in the 90s, and those basically were just lowering, getting stuff down low, and then everybody kind of adapted over to air shocks, then airbags, and it just kind of graduated to what you see now in the truck industry. And then the truck industry that, kind of flowed over into the hot rod industry. Hot rod guys were a little reluctant in the beginning with air ride, and then they kind of adapted over to it. And then we've just kind of graduated into the trucks, and then low riders, and then, the hot rod scene, muscle cars, all that. And then it got to the point where we were working on a lot of stuff from the 50s. And if you're familiar with anything from the 50s, most of the chassis under those cars don't cooperate very well with anything modern, as far as modern handling, modern braking, any of that stuff. So we started getting into building our own chassis to build a nicer car for somebody who's got a 54 Chevy Bel Air, 47 through 54 Chevy truck, stuff like that. And that's basically where we got into the chassis building.
I'm familiar with both. I built a chassis for my truck, which is the 3100 series, racing chassis. And then I messed with we had a 53 Chevy 210 that I chopped and did bags on, and a Mustang 2 front end. And yes, you're absolutely right. They are. There's not really any good bolt-on kits for something like that. Plus, those frames are. I don't want to say they're weak, because most of those were actually pretty boxy. But to get like a 4-link or something in them takes some effort, for sure. So, what kind of vehicles? I know you mentioned a few of them there. What kind of vehicles are you mostly do or kind of specialize in?
As far as specializing, anything from the 30s all the way into the 90s. But mainly it's your cars that need cars and trucks need full frames. Your 40s and 50s, Chevy trucks, Ford trucks, the cars, a lot of your Ford cars, were leaf spring. So obviously somebody wants to eliminate the leaf springs, and then you run into issues with fitment. So it's almost easier just to ditch the whole frame, build a bumper to bumper frame. Then a lot of the front suspensions are very archaic and don't cooperate very well with adapting brakes over, adapting air ride. The airbags don't fit because the coil spring was too small. Then you have some of the other Fords, which have the coil spring on top of the A-arm. Those are a hassle to try to get down on the ground. So we started developing, suspension, modern suspension for vehicles like that.
So do you make your own custom A arms and stuff when you do like a double wishbone?
Yeah.
Oh, sweet.
Mm-hmm.
So you're that detailed.
Yeah. Yeah. So we build everything but the spindle. So I order 4 9-inch housing from any one of the multi-manufacturers that will build you a housing, axles, gear set, put one of those together. I give them the dimensions. They build the rear into the width I want.
Yeah.
And I start with a 4 9-inch rear end housing built to the customer's horsepower. And then I develop the front suspension, the track width, everything off of what the customer is doing with the vehicle and wheel size.
Yeah. That's a big one, especially with the big wheel craze that is now. It's probably very difficult to get that fitment right.
Yeah. We actually have a 454 SS truck in the shop right now that we have finished up the back half on. We need to finish rear frame mounts for the bed and air ride mounts for it. But we've done that one on the back with 24 by 15 wide with a 4.5-inch backspace. So
yeah,
if you can imagine how much barrel that wheel is.
Well, I can tell Chris to look right behind where the camera's at.
Yeah,
he can see exactly what that looks like.
Yeah. What size are those?
Those are actually 16s, but the wheels are the same as they're 14 with 4.5 backspace.
Yeah.
So those are some pretty deep dish wheels for sure. So there wasn't, and particularly with that, and then also running air ride, you said?
Yeah.
That's got to be tough to be able to package that because there's not a whole lot of room between those two rear tires.
No, there's not. We took 16.5 inches out of the rear end housing.
Wow. That's cool. It
was a 14 bolt, so it was super thick. That's a hell of a rear end to chop through.
Okay, yeah, I guarantee it. I guess you just set the bandsaw up and come back in a few hours, huh?
Yeah, essentially, yeah.
Yeah, I understand. All right. So how many employees do you got over there? Do you got a bunch or is it just you?
Yeah, I got a part-time guy who helps me out. He's a car builder. Been a lifelong friend of mine. And he also helps me with the business end. And then I got 2 other guys that work in the shop, and my son works with me full time.
Nice. And this one's going to be a tough one because I do chassis stuff for guys too. Like I said, mainly on the race car side of things. And I hate this question, but it's on the paper, so I'm going to ask you. Say I bring you a car and I could get it fitted in. What kind of typical build time are you looking for?
Yeah, I mean, it is a tough one. It all depends on to what extent I'm building it. I have quite a few in the shop that I'm literally building a chassis, fitting a body, and giving the vehicle back. And then him and his buddies and a 6-pack are going to finish it, or he's got a motor shop that's going to finish it.
Yeah.
So it comes down to the extent, and I actually have numerous ones in the shop. I have a 54 Bel Air that we're building. It's turnkey. It came as a running driving car, super slick car, all original drivetrain under it. Been already V8 swapped. We built a bumper to bumper chassis for it because he wanted it flat on the ground. So instead of it being just laying on the frame, if I was to build onto the existing frame, this one is actually got a custom frame that tucks further up into the body. Allows the rockers to sit flat on the ground.
What do they call it? Channeling, right? When you put the frame up into the body some? Is that what's called channeling?
Well, typically channeling would be cutting the channels in the floor and allowing the frame to come up into the floor. But I'm building a low profile chassis that fits under the existing floor.
Oh, really? So
I'm building the belly rail of the chassis is actually smaller but thicker than the factory rail. So the factory rail, say, was like 4.5, 5 inches. Yeah. I'm building a 3-inch rail under the belly of the car in order to let the car drop down. But I'm using quarter wall material and then building a structural skeleton in the middle of it to add to the strength of the main rails too.
Wow. So, I mean, how do you figure, do you do this just by how long you've been, you sound like you've been doing it a long time. So you've got a lot of practice in it. Is there any rules of thumb or do you use any kind of software or anything to figure out what you can get away with, something like that?
Measuring tape. Yeah. I pay attention to a measuring tape and math.
Yeah.
And like I said, you got companies out there like Art Morrison, Roadster Shop, stuff like that manufacture chassis, and they do really, really nice chassis, but they've gotten to the cookie cutter aspect of it, where you call them up and you say, I want a frame for my car. And well, you get a frame just like the next guy's frame. I'm trying to cater to the guy who wants something a little more unique and wants me to build a frame that caters to him and what he's doing with his car. So like the 54 we're building, it's just a standard, 350 in it that was put in probably in the 90s. It's got a different rear end in it, but everything else is all original underneath. It's lowered with lowering blocks in the back. It's a cool little cruiser. He wants it on air ride, sitting flat on the ground. So I'm building the chassis to accommodate what he's wanting. It's running steel wheels and white walls. No big billets, nothing like that. Nothing super wide, tucked under, real far under, anything like that. But then also on the other side of the shop, I have a '03, I think it is, full-size Chevy 1500, built 6.0, twin turbo, dynoed at 1100 horsepower. That one's got 22 by 12s out back, 4.5 inch backspace on those too. Big meats. So I built him a bumper to bumper frame to accommodate what he's doing. That frame follows more of the form follows function aspect. I built everything to work and be really strong with the fact that he's putting an 1100 horsepower motor in it with a 12-inch wide patch tire in the rear. And then I made it look nice after that.
Yeah.
So I basically build according, to what the customer wants. When I sit down and build a chassis, I sit down with the customer. I'm like, what are you looking to do? What direction are you going with this? This is a show car. Are you going to take it to the track every once in a while? What's the deal? And this truck we're doing, that's what he said. He told me, he's like, you know what, Brandon? He goes, I want a cool show truck. I want it to slam down the ground low. He goes, but I do got a big motor for it. I may want to take it to the track and stand on it every once in a while. I said, I got you.
I'd like to see it. those big old meats and that 1100 horse. That'll probably get down.
It'll be a lot of fun.
It's
going to be a killer truck.
Do you? I'm assuming you probably have some kind of chassis jig or something like that, or maybe several of them. As much projects as you going on, or do you?
Yeah,
do
we got a couple frame tables, and we build jigs for anything that's going to turn into a production part. We'll build a jig for it so that we can reproduce that part, multiple times.
Right. Probably your wishbones and stuff like that is probably something you probably jigged up and ready to go.
Yep.
Right on. I'm assuming most of your work's probably going to be street driven, hot rod, stuff like that. So this question might catch you off a little bit off guard. But and do you mainly work in mild steel, or do you need chromoly work, or?
No, mild steel. Almost everything's mild steel. We don't do much outside of that. I don't do a lot in the drag world. I got a few people that are, hey, can you back half my car? Things like that. So we'll do some meets out back on a car, set up a ladder bar setup, a four link, some coilovers and stuff like that. But most of my stuff is street driven, hot rods.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's a lot of our fans are having that same kind of boat. They just want just a little street car, and that looks cool and rides nice and has all the minor conveniences of a newer car as far as steering and handling and all that stuff. How long did it take you to learn, particularly when you're making your own wishbones for, front, upper, and lower control arms? All the math and geometry involved, from anti-dive angles to Ackerman and everything like that. How long did it really take you to perfect that art? Because it's taken me a long time, and I'm not nearly as good as you are, I'm sure. Yeah,
it's taken a lot and in my end of it, a lot of the race car guys, they're like, oh, you set this up. And I was like, well, yeah, that works for that. I said, but I have another aspect. I'm going through a larger range of motion than most street-driven cars, So a lot of guys that are like, well, yeah, just put it on like this. Well, yeah, that works great if you're just going to drive down the road and you need to say 4 inches of up and down travel to accommodate, dips and bumps and stuff on the road. I said, but I need to go through 6 to 8 inches of travel and then still come back to a point that I can drive this car 80 miles an hour down the highway.
That is one problem. I've only done one airbag system in my life, and that was one problem I ran into. With the Mustang 2 front end, you really can't get much more than 4 inches from the original unless you get like extended ball joints and stuff like that, or you just get bound up. It's very, very difficult to do.
That's why. So the truck that I was talking about, the '03 Silverado, that one actually has a completely bumper to bumper. So I built tubular arms for it. I used the 99 06 Chevy truck spindle on it, and we ended up building the A arms. I built the upper A arm ears. I built lower cradle. I did dual cradles. So instead of like being one cradle like a Mustang 2, it's actually two of those. One that each lower A-arm bushing rides into. And then I slid the airbag underneath the frame rail and further back. So what that would do is that gives me more swing clearance that I'm not going to run the big brakes, because this guy bought 16-inch wheel widths for it. So it's a 16-inch rotor with a 6-piston caliper the size of my forearm. And I had to make sure that that wouldn't swing on the turn and basically poke at the bag.
Yeah.
So I actually slid the airbag underneath the frame rail a little bit, because I built, everything. And that puts a little more pressure on the airbag, changes the ride on it, but then it also gains me more lift because I'm further back on the pivot point, closer to the pivot point. Therefore, it gives me more lift. So there's a lot of things with air ride that you can kind of dial in that you can't with the coilover setup. Coilover plugs in at A, plugs in at B, and there you go.
Yeah.
And you don't have a ton of adjustability, a little bit of height adjustability, a little bit of dampening, but you don't have to go through the severe range of motion you do with air ride. So, yeah, I've had a lot of, well, that didn't work. I need to change that. A lot of cutting things off, changing things, a lot of cycling. When I build a frame like that, I build a clip on the workbench to where I can actually, stand there, pull the A-arm up, drop the A-arm down. I can hang it off the side of the workbench, let the suspension droop completely out, take it back up, go through everything and just dial in my A-arm mounts. And a lot of those trucks, so the 90, 99 all the way to probably 14, that truck suspension has a big issue with the A-arms being too close together. So we actually spread the A-arms further apart when we do those, and it gives less camber when it lays out, so you don't have the top of the wheel leaning in so bad, and that helps with a lot of handling characteristics.
Well, that's pretty cool. I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to take a quick little break, and then we're going to come back, and we got a few more questions for you, okay? Is your trailer an organization disaster?
Do you have a hard time finding the tools that you need when you're at the track?
Well, let us tell you about some awesome organizational tools offered by Clear One.
Clear One Products is a leading manufacturer of lightweight, non-marring, scratch-resistant trailer storage components, a high-quality, low-cost alternative to metal components.
Whether it's your race car trailer, horse trailer, work trailer, or even your garage or shop, Clear One offers the products that you need. A full line of products is available to get you organized.
From fuel jug holders, oil and aerosol shelves, trailer door racks, tool and floor jack holders, to vinyl strip doors and jack pads, Clear One has it all.
Check out our friends over at Clear One Racing for all your trailer and race day organizational needs.
That's clear1racing.com. Clear and the number one racing.com.
Thank you, Clear One, for sponsoring the Line Locked podcast.
So when I went to go visit his shop, I saw a very familiar van out there. This thing is lifted. It's like a 4x4 van.
Yeah.
I don't know. Have you ever seen the Spinelli's van?
I've been to Spinelli's, which is in Louisville.
Yeah, and there's the one that's down on, I think it's Bardstown Road. Evidently.
Is that the one that has that one guy naked?
There's something crazy.
Who is that guy?
Artwork on the side of it.
Burt Reynolds.
Burt Reynolds.
Yes. Yes.
It's got a picture on the wall of Burt Reynolds
Yes.
naked, and it's like in one of those portraits from like the Bible, where he's with his finger holding out, isn't that?
It was in Playgirl or something. Yes. Well, yeah. Anyways.
Yeah, sorry to go off topic.
So I was driving down Bardstown Road. It's been a month now, I guess, and it looks like that van sits out on the street all the time.
Yeah.
They don't even take it home, I guess. And somebody had rear-ended it.
Yeah.
Busted the rear end all the way out. And I happened to see it at his shop when we got over there. Tell us about that. Was that a friend of yours or?
Yeah, Brian Goggin, the owner of Spinelli's, is a good friend of mine. And then the owner of Spinelli St. Matthews, Pat Burke, he's also a good friend of mine who I actually moved down here close to 25 years ago to work for when he had a shop. He's went off and ventured off into the auto collision, and then has always been friends with Brian, the owner of Spinelli's, and he decided to take over one of the stores, the St. Matthews store. So yeah, I know all the owners, everybody from Spinelli's. Like I said, Brian, I lived with Brian and Pat for quite a few months when I first moved down here. And I do a lot of fab work for him. Did a lot of fab work on his pizza van. the box truck that they have. Worked on his own personal cars numerous times. We just actually lowered his new Scion XB. He loves the little Scion XBs, and we put wheels on one and lowered it for him. And we do basic custom work and maintenance on a lot of his vehicles. So the van's there because we're going to deal with the insurance company and get it all sorted out as far as the amount of damage done to it and the fact that it's a custom vehicle. So, it's not, it's not a 92 Camry.
Yeah. You can't look that up in a book and tell you how many hours it's going to take to fix it.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's like a 75 full-size Chevy van, and it's got 35s or 37s on it. Big lift, got big Dane axles in it. Custom link setup coilovers on it all the way around. So, yeah, it's
so you're saying they deliver pizza in the country?
So what's the story behind that?
Yeah, where'd that car come from? Do you know?
Well, I don't know if you remember that he had a purple one before. It was a long one, and it was done van style. What we did is we jacked the back end up a little bit, put some fat Kragers out back.
Yeah.
Skinny Kragers up front. It was painted Bass Boat Flake purple. Pat painted that one also. He had his airbrush artist do the Iron Maiden Eddie.
Yeah, okay.
On it.
I have seen this. Yeah.
Yeah, and I did that one. I put train horns on it for him, did some other stuff to it, and then that one got hit also. One of his employees wrecked it. Then it got hit, and at that point it was done. So we had actually scrapped it for him. We cut one of the van sides off that was still good. That one went into one of the Spinellis on the wall, and we scrapped the rest of the van. He wanted another one. He found this one. It was lifted already, but it was pretty much just a stock blue paint job on the outside. So that one, we ended up doing a little bit of maintenance work on the steering and a couple other little things on it. Pat painted it. It's Bass Boat Flake Blue. Brian had his airbrush artist come in, do that one with the different Iron Maiden Eddie graphics on it, pinstriped it. Pat came in and re-cleared over everything, and it's just kind of something that stands out. Yeah. Brian's just kind of he likes some weird stuff out there.
It certainly does that.
it draws attention.
Yeah.
That van's been out to Arizona. There's Spinelli's out in Arizona that's ran by a good friend of Brian's, and it stayed some time out there. Kind of just park it out front, and it draws attention.
Yeah.
People talk about it. They see the van. Oh, there's Spinelli's right there.
Yeah.
And then he brought it back here. It sat out front there to kind of draw attention and stuff. And happened to be some lady trucking down Barstown or trucking down Baxter, and she plowed into the back of it.
Wow. It gives me an idea, Chris. Maybe we need to get a van for advertisement. You think?
Free candy?
That's exactly where I was going with it.
No. We're on the same wavelength. No.
So that was, I'm sorry, I don't want to break you off, but this brings me to something else. You're Smith Chassis and Metalworks. So what kind of work do you do with the metal side of things? I'm assuming that means making body panels, custom panels, or dashes or something, or how far do you go into that? All of it?
I mean, we do, chassis are what I call our strong point.
Yeah.
That's what our main thing, chassis and suspension. But we do full turnkey builds. Somebody brings us something that needs, old new panels put on it. Say it's got needs a full quarter. We can handle putting a full quarter panel on it, fitting it to your original door. Fitting it to original wheelhouse, stuff like that. Chop tops, suicide doors. Shaving handles. Doing any kind of heavy sheet metal body modifications, stuff like that. Pat, he's working on a car right now. It's a newer car, which we don't do a ton, but anything kind of unique we'll tackle. He's wide bodying an '08 Lexus IS. So
certainly
you basically put 11-inch wide wheels on it that stuck out, then stretched the body to meet the wheels.
Wow.
Yeah. Car is insanely wide. And it's all out of steel.
Yeah.
Everything's out of metal. So we stretch the fenders out of metal, stretch the quarter panels out of metal, stretch the rear door to then blend into the quarter panel. So we'll kind of tackle anything that's unique.
So what you're saying is Pat knows his way around an English wheel, huh?
Most of his stuff is all just hand formed.
Really?
Literally slice the panel, bend it, push it, pull it, tack it back in place, add more metal, cut the panel off, work it on the workbench, work it over your knee, bend it where it needs to be bent, and put it back on.
Well, that is impressive.
Yeah, and that's the question I was actually going to ask, and you just beat me to it. Was when I was in your shop, I saw some guys working on stuff, and it must have been Pat actually doing some body work and stuff. And I was going to ask if you did more than just chassis stuff, but that answered my question. Yep. It was the same question you were asking.
I had a good lead in.
You did. You were perfect. It's almost like you've done this before.
So let me. I wanted to bring up a point because this is one thing that I have problems with. Not problems, but expectations with customers. Steel prices are just ridiculous right now. I mean, and they don't ever seem to go backwards. Do you have an issue with when you initially build a job? And I know you never really were able to answer typical build time, but at least the last year, I think steel price went up 25 to 50%, and that's difficult for our when we're trying to do this type of work because the price that we told you 6 months ago may not be the same price today. And if it is, we're just losing as builders of metal. We're just losing that profit, out of just the material cost. You want to speak on any of that?
Yeah, I mean the steel market. So it's probably been we were probably in the middle of COVID, and my steel rep told me that steel had went up 150% from the last normal steel hike, which is their normal small percentage that it goes up. When we were in the middle of COVID, it went up 150%. And I'm just like, that's insane. I'm like, I can't build the same components for the same price, as I used to. So yeah, trying to convey that to customers is kind of tough because they're used to, well, my buddy 2 years ago got this built and it was X amount of dollars. And I'm like, I understand that, but now that material costs a hell of a lot more. So yeah, I run into the same issue with, with steel cost and trying to quote something. And then I usually tell people when I can kind of get a feel for them, they're like, all right, well, I'll get back to you in a couple, if I get that kind of customer, I always make sure, hey, just let you know that price won't be the same. I can guarantee it won't be the same when you call me back in 2 months.
And you're the asshole because you're the one that's jacked the prices up because the customer doesn't see that.
Yeah, it's so tough.
Right.
Yes.
Just to give you a quick example, I deal with a lot of chromoly tubing, and we use 1 5/8" for roll cages. And last year before, 2 years ago, I made a big order of it, and then I had to order some more tubes later, just recently. At 2 years ago, the chromoly tubing was like 125 a stick, 150 a stick. It's close to 300 right now, and it's just you're nearly doubled in price. So the same cage to build, you usually use 5 or 6 sticks of that. The same cage to build is probably going to cost you about $500 to $1,000 more than it was 2 years ago. And that's not labor, guys. That's just material cost. Our labor had to go up some too, just because of the inflation and all that. But it's not nearly as much as what the price of material is costing you. So anybody that's calling you or anybody listening to this podcast, be realistic about that. Prices and material is really killing, especially small businesses. Yeah. Where we can't order $1 million of material to try to get a better price on it. It's just tough for sure. Yeah. My next question for you is, where do you see the future going with the advent of all this EV stuff coming out? And is it something that you're willing to tackle if somebody has like an EV car that wants it lowered for some reason? Have you had any experience with that?
I mean, I've seen it go both ways. I've seen everybody EV swap stuff and try to come into the new era of electric cars. And then I've also seen those same cars get swapped back because everybody is so bent out of shape about it being EV swapped. Yeah. So it kind of goes both ways. I mean, I see it being kind of a novelty thing. I don't see it being the new norm or seeing a ton more of them, but I do see, a few pop up here and there. Guys that are like, it'd be kind of cool doing electric swap, stuff like that. Yeah. But I don't see it becoming the new hot rod, the new norm, just because hot rodding's been around for so long, and you have so many things that go with hot rodding: the noise, the smell, the vibration, you have all that goes with it. You just really can't. I mean, in your guys' stuff with the drag racing, you can build an EV car and take it out there and hang with some of the big horsepower cars, maybe beat a handful of them. But at the end of the day, it doesn't vibrate your chest. You don't have to wear headphones. There's a lot of people that love that.
Yeah. At the end of the day, you're going to take your purse and drive home. I'm sorry, EV guys. Now we went to the PRI show, which is a performance racing industry show, a few weeks back, and I was expecting to see more EV stuff. I didn't, but I will mention that they are building kits, and I'm sure you've seen them, where they're pretty much drop-in deals where it pretty much goes where your motor goes or your engine would go, connects to a normal, turbo 350 or 700 R4 or whatever, and pretty much just a pretty quick change. And I see if our industry is going to change to something, that's probably going to be the first thing, because people want to still have the old style cars, and the only thing that's really going to be different, or maybe new generation kids might want, is the ability to plug it in their garage. And I just thought it was an interesting topic to think about. I don't know. Eventually it's coming. That's just the way the world is and how it's going to be. I'm going to hold on. You could take my V8 from my cold dead hands.
Exactly.
My big old jug of methanol. It's me, baby.
All the way to the end.
All the way to the end.
Aren't they didn't they make a law or whatever?
I don't know if they made it a law. So
2030 or something like that?
Yeah. So as far as they got to have, at least major producers have to have so many cars made that are EV compat or EV only type thing. So we're eventually going to have to go there. We're all going to. We're going to have to somehow make it fun. I don't know. But as far as now, we got 10, 20 years, at least my lifetime, to really suss it out.
Flux capacitors.
Yeah, there you go.
That's what we're going to use.
A DeLorean, electric DeLorean.
Yeah. Oh, man.
All right, man. It's been a great time talking with you, and I've learned a little bit from you, and I hope we can stay in touch. Is there anybody you'd like to thank or make a comment on anything?
I'd like to thank my wife, obviously, because she supported me for years and helped me get where I'm at. In fact, she brought you guys in.
She's a cool chick.
Me too.
Yeah.
My son, he helps me every day. He's homeschooled, and I pulled him out of school a few years back, and he works with me every day. He's 16 now. He can actually fabricate most grown men under the table. Mm-hmm. So he's picked up on it and loves what he does. So I'd like to thank him, and then my guys at the shop, Josh and Pat and everybody who helped me out. Then my customers. I got a real good, loyal group of customers that I build numerous cars for. I got a couple guys that are just constantly, hey, I got this one for you. Oh, that one, pick this one up, drop this one off. So those guys are great too.
Having your son in the shop and teaching him everything you're teaching him is probably a lot more beneficial for him than about any college that you could ever go to. Because regardless of what happens with your chassis shop, he has a set of skills that is a dying thing. We just don't have good institutions out there that teach that style of, problem solving. Is a lot of what we do as, when we build things like this, is coming to a problem and finding a solution. And if you can teach him how to come to the solutions, that's a big thing that you're offering him and giving him. How can we contact you if anybody was interested in trying to get some custom fabrication done? How would they approach you? How would they get a hold of you?
Well, you can get a hold of me. Smith Chassis. 502-640-6828. Check out our social media, Smith Chassis on Facebook, and then Smith Chassis on Instagram. My son's is Smith Chassis Wyatt. He kind of keeps up on the social media. I'm usually going 100 miles an hour most of the time and forget to stop and take a picture, make a post of a customer's car because I'm getting it done, getting it outside, cleaned up, ready for the customer to pick it up. And then I'm thinking of the next one that I need to get going on. So he keeps up on that really well. And then my guy, Josh, he keeps up on the Smith Chassis Instagram well, too. So you can check us out, see a lot of the stuff that we build and a lot of the products that we make.
Well, we will make sure we put links below to all those when we get them from you.
Yeah,
And
and
awesome.
That's Louisville, Kentucky, too, by the way.
Yep.
In case we didn't
Yep.
say that before, but yes, it's awesome, man. It's been great talking to you, and say hi to your wife. I think I've got another appointment with her in a couple weeks, so I'll be seeing you
cool.
again for sure. And,
What kind of tattoo
yeah.
you getting?
I'm getting all my stuff filled in. On
You
my
getting all
arm.
that? Maybe
Yeah.
I have to call her too.
Yeah, come
I
on
need.
by.
I haven't had a tattoo in a while.
Well, won't you come with me, and I'll go get my tattoo. And
yeah.
you can talk
We
to
can
Brandon.
talk shop. I can go over. I can go over your shoulder and say you ain't doing it right, Brandon. All right, it was a pleasure talking to you, buddy. And until next
Good seeing
time,
you guys.
we'll see you.
All right, man. See ya.
See ya.
All right, man. That was a great conversation.
Yes, it's great being able to get other kind of guests in that don't talk about just drag racing.
Yeah.
And with me and you both have been in like the hot rod scene for a while and building cars, and it's good to see
Pretty much our whole life.
Pretty much the whole life. Yeah, it started with my dad and your dad, and from the old hot rods to the muscle cars and everything. It's been a great experience that you can't just learn anywhere except learning on your own and learning how to fix things.
One thing that I hate though is everybody always asks me when we're driving down the fire truck, they'll see a car and be like, oh, what kind of car was that? I have no idea. I never got the talent of seeing a car and recognizing what it is. I have a hard time coming up with all that, but you're pretty good about it though, because sometimes I'll ask you when we're going down the road and you see something.
Yeah.
For the most part, if I've owned it, I could probably tell you what it was. But other than that, I haven't owned a whole lot.
Yeah, but there's a lot. Both of our dads are really good at knowing what year a car is.
Oh, yeah.
Just by like a simple little
A subtle little piece of trim, one place, they
Yes,
know.
exactly.
It's like, yeah, man, that smells like a 66. I don't.
Exactly. Oh man.
All right, let's move on to viewer mail real quick. We have an email, and I'll tell you, I was reaching out to some people for some information, and I ran across this gentleman. And during our conversation, he was just telling me a couple stories. I was like, man, would you like to come on the podcast and tell me a couple stories? He goes, I'm not real sure if that's something I'm comfortable with. I said, well, you need to do me a favor. You need to send me a little email about your little history and send me some pictures. And he agreed to do that, and he did that. I'm going to have Chris read some of that, and then we're going to throw up some pictures behind us of some of the projects that he had.
All right. So his name is Butch, right?
Yep, Butch's Drag Racing Adventures.
All right. He says, my first real racing adventure was a 1970 Mustang Mach 1 with a 351 Cobra Jet engine and a 4-speed. Man, I bet that was fun.
I guarantee it.
After upgrades to a 351 stroker and a Doug Nash 4-speed, the car ran consistent 11-second passes. My best win was 2 AHRA Grand Nationals and 1 ADRA Nationals at Dragway 42. His next adventure was building a 1933 Ford Street Rod with a blown 355 Chevy engine. The car was driven on the street and the drag strip. The car also ran consistent 11-second passes. My best win was the Good Guys Hot Rod class in Columbus, Ohio.
I bet that was big.
Yeah,
That was a big win.
Good Guys, anything Good Guys
that
is
was
a
a
big
big
win.
win.
Yeah. His he says my bucket list goal was to restore and drive a 70s alcohol funny car. I restored a 76 Mustang II that was originally owned by Harold Thompson. The first 3 years it was powered by a 409 injected Chevy.
509.
509 injected Chevy, sorry. The next 4 years consisted of a blown alcohol 509. The car competed with the Great Lakes Nostalgia Funny Car Association match race program and ran consistent 730s at 185 miles an hour. His best pass was a 717 at 197.
That's quite a bit different than the 11-second passes he was making prior
that's
to.
a big change there, buddy. He says he's still looking to build a Mustang II bracket car or class car or another 33 or 34 Ford Coupe with a Ford engine. He says, God willing, the beat goes on.
We look forward to seeing you around, Butch. I'm
Yep.
sure we'll see you a few times this year and maybe a few times next year. And I hope you're able to make it out and have a good time.
Yeah.
Our next particular piece of mail, and it didn't come in via mail, came in via text. And this is a good friend of ours. I won't name names, but he put
Look at that.
his Blood Brothers Racing. It was a Blood Brothers Racing little ornament on his
That we were trying to give away for everybody.
his tree there. That tree, though.
That tree.
I feel like it really ties the room together.
Yes, just like the rug. Yes. And look at the little puppy dog.
Yeah. All right, cool. Well, thank you very much for putting it up and sending me a picture. That was cool.
Yeah, awesome. On our last podcast, we had Kyle Renfro, the champion, NDRL champion for 2023 for the modified production class, which is, the 4-speed class or 5-speed class, whatever. Clutch class, I guess we can call it. And 1320 Quick commented, and he says, I'm one of those guys that Kyle would say is an easy round win in modified production. I've got exactly 0 wins in my stick shift car, but I'm trying hard and hoping to improve as I go. I feel like a chum in the water with the Sharks in the MP class. Maybe Kyle and the guys will throw me a few crumbs next year.
I tell you what, 1320 Quick, I'll throw like a banana peel out in the opposing lane for you. Give you a shot for it. Hey, it takes a lot of losing rounds in order to try to get all those out of the way before you get a couple of wins. It's just how the process goes, and that's the reason I love drag racing so much, because it's so hard, and people they think, you just got to go in a straight line. There's a lot to it that they just don't realize.
And, just coming from my experience, I've just finished my second year, and I've won a couple rounds, but it was difficult winning those. And I've won first rounds, but could never get past the first round into the second round. Yeah. And so every time you go out there, it's a new learning experience, and that's where we're at.
You find the million ways to lose before you can get a few of those that you can win on.
Exactly. And, if you're like some people, you can just get a bye for the second round and say you made it past the first round.
Well, hang on. Hang on. That seems pointed. Hey, but the thing is I won so hard in the first round that I actually won the second round with it too.
Yeah. Well, no, it was definitely well deserved. No doubt. And lastly, one of our people that also commented, he comments a lot for us, and he gives us some good stuff to talk about. And this is about the NHRA announcement.
Okay.
And it's Fast Eddie's 560. He says, I am not a Tony Stewart fan at all, and I don't think he's anything. Ooh, those are fighting words.
Tony, we're sorry. His comments are not a reflection of the Line Lock podcast.
Disclaimer. Don't sue us. He says, you get a team with enough money and a good crew chief, and you can put a monkey in that car and win races. I agree. The NHRA has zero clue what the fans want to see.
I don't agree or disagree with you there, buddy. I think NHRA has a lot of inward reflection they need to have in order to try to continue this sport. I think the reasons that we have dwindled in numbers up until evidently Tony Stewart's coming to save us is because the NHRA is just out of touch. Maybe if they think the fans are the only ones they're supposed to be marketing to, that's maybe the reason. I don't know. I'd love for some of the exec to come on and hopefully not suspend my membership.
Yeah, that's true. You're banned.
Yeah. Jesse, you need to watch out. The NHRA is watching.
Oops. Oh, my gosh.
I think that's going to be it from us. And I tell you what, we want to wish you a very, very Merry Christmas.
Yep.
And
make sure if you want to comment on any of our posts, do so. And if you want to write us, linelockpodcast at gmail.com.
I believe you said it a little wrong. It's Line Locked
podcast.
It's up here.
There you go. Just follow that link up there.
You need to go. And then if you don't mind, if you listen to this, man, put a little effort in for us, just a little bit. All you got to do is go to the Line Locked podcast on Facebook and hit a like button or follow or whatever you got to do. We need to bring that number up a little bit because it's dwindling. I think it's just my mom and a couple sisters that's following it right now.
Hey,
it's all good comments, though.
Yes.
Haven't had a negative one on there yet. But we have had some emails. So, we need to do we need to do a segment on this viewer mail. We need to include some more of those negative ones like a few episods ago.
The bad review.
Yeah, the bad review ones, yeah. We haven't had any real good ones lately that's worth mentioning. Just basically that I'm ugly and that my voice sounds like a raccoon screaming out of a trash can, I think was one of them. I don't know where they've come up with this shit. All right, well, have a Merry Christmas. We love you guys. And I think we'll have one more. Yeah, we'll have one more before the new year, but we'll see you on the next one. So
all right.
You are who?
I'm Chris.
I'm Corey. And we are Line Locked. Woo!
Yes,
that
baby.
was damn close, baby.
Damn close. You guys have a great Merry Christmas, and we love you.